Let's talk about the slide return spring mod. Oh yeah. Hello friends, hello YouTube, how are you guys doing? Rainbow here with another Nerf mod video, and we're talking again about the Gecko because there's still upgrades coming out for the Gecko and it's fantastic. I have a bunch of them lined up for the next couple of videos, and if you haven't checked out my new web shop, link is in the description. Most of them will pop up there very soon, and then they make their way from there to Etsy and all the other places, so go check it out. But today we're going to talk about the slide return spring mod. So grab yourself a cup of tea or coffee or whatever you have, and let's go. Alright, so talking about the slide spring return mod, first of all, what is it? What does it do? As you've seen in the intro, it's that. That's it. So normally when you prime a Gecko, you prime it backwards, it stays there, and you have to prime it forward. Kind of a normal operation for a top prime Springer blaster. You got to prime it back, you know, let the catch engage and prime it to the front, and you're ready to shoot. The slide return spring mod takes this part out of the equation. So as you see in here, prime back, you let it go, and the slide goes forward. So yeah, the slide return spring mod essentially does this. It pulls back the slide for you all the way to its front position, and that's it. Do you need it? Definitely not. Do you want it? Maybe, because it does have a real cool feel to it. So before we dive into how this works and what's going on here, I have to give a shout out. This mod was not my idea, so I can't take credit. Way back, like 2-3 months back, me and my friend Adia already talked about something like this. He mentioned something about a slide spring recoil sort of thing, and then it was actually Paul from Singapore a couple of weeks back who finally made it clear to me how this is going to work in his first video about Gecko upgrades. I'm going to link him in the description if you haven't seen it. Really cool video. And well, he then did a video specifically on this mod and how you build it and how you know how it works, which is great because then I don't have to explain it in full depth. But yeah, check out these videos. Shout out to Paul, shout out to Adia, you guys are awesome. So let's go. So the way this works, it's essentially another spring sitting in the slide, and I'm going to show it to you out here. So here you'd have your turnaround with your beautiful aluminum machined barrel that you can get at your favorite modding shop, and over the top of this you have a spring, just like so. And essentially all the slide does now, it pushes this backwards and then it sits there like so, and then when you let go it pushes the slide back forward. Done. That's all it is. That's all the action, and that's actually as simple as this mod is. And the reason why this is so simple and there's nothing else to the mod is this little noggin down here inside the slide, and you can see that corner right there. That's where the spring actually rests on. So when I push this backwards, this is where the spring sits in between, and then it pushes forward just like so. And I've talked to Adrian about this, and that actually is the purpose of that ledge. So that was an idea. He abandoned the plan of a slide return spring for several reasons, but the design kind of was in place and there was no need to change it back or anything. That's why he left it, which is really cool because now we can use it to make this mod happen. So now all it is really, it's just a spring of sorts. The specifications can vary a little bit. I did some testing on several different springs, and now I settled on this spring, which is also the one I will have available in my shop. So if you want to, you know, upgrade your Gecko with this, that's all you need to do. It's a spring up there, put it back together, and you're golden. One of the questions that I got asked is, can you just easily, simply install this with my spring swap mod by just taking out the front? And no, sadly you can't, because what you do is you take off the catch housing, but you're not freeing up the space in the slide. So unfortunately, if you want to install this into your Gecko, you have to disassemble the Gecko all the way until you have this part. So you can do this and you're done. You put it back together. Something you need to be aware of though, like it's not just dropping a spring in and it wouldn't change anything. What happens is the force required to compress this spring will add to the force you already have from your main spring. So that's something you need to be aware of, because right now in here is the RMP5 spring in my little testing Gecko, and so this is significantly harder to to prime. It's not that bad really, because you know, it's just a tiny spring. However, it does add. So when I'm rocking the RMP9 spring in here, I can actually feel the difference quite noticeably. So you got to be aware that the spring will add to the overall prime weight, which makes total sense. That is also the reason why you can't go too beefy on this spring. So when I first tried stuff out, I didn't have the springs with the right dimensions. I actually figured out that a Cyclone Shock spring, the Mega Cyclone Shock, that spring actually fits quite nicely over these barrels. It's quite a bit too long, but you know, you can pre-compress it and it's all good. But that is heavy, so like it works, but it's seriously heavy, and it makes your slide jump forward so much quicker. It almost like, it feels like you're going to destroy something. So yeah, after testing several different springs, I settled on this one, and you may notice that it's not as long as the one in Paul's video, but it is stronger in itself. And it's kind of the balance that you got to make, because with a stronger spring, you definitely have a lot of power, and no matter what mag or whatever you're using, you have the slight return all the way. But also the force will be a lot harder, like two ways. So like the force required to prime this will be a lot more, and also the force of which the entire slide slams forward will be a lot more. So I was trying to sort of go for a middle ground between not powerful enough but easy on the internals, and too powerful, way too powerful and harsh on the internals. I've tried to go the middle way, which is why I chose the spring that I choose. So now that you know where you can get it, let's talk about why you want this mod, or why you possibly don't want this mod. Because I feel like I gotta be honest with you about this. This is a really cool feature, but it comes with its disadvantages. So if you're already sold on the feature, you can skip the rest of the video. No, don't. Please stick around. Have some drink. Good coffee is everything you need. So let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of this. So Paul in his video said the reason why you want this mod is because you can go quicker from aiming to priming to taking aim again. And I guess this kind of makes sense with a, you know, comparing it to a standard Gecko. You kind of go fire, prime, and fire. So what Paul's saying is this makes it easier to go from here, right back in there, right back in there. It does make it a little bit quicker, but honestly, if you're used to a top prime springer, I don't see that being the major thing. Like this or like this, it's, you know, slightly quicker, but okay. However, I think the coolness factor of having this really comes into play, especially if you're using this for LARP or cosplay purposes. Just the idea of that, yeah, it just adds so much to the feel. And that's the two reasons why you possibly want this upgrade, or this mod. Let's call it a mod, because I'm not entirely sure that it's an upgrade, to be honest, and I'll explain in a second. So yeah, the one is you're quicker going from prime to aim, and the other one is you look a hell of a lot cooler doing it. And yes, so what are the potential disadvantages of this mod? The number one thing, and I really have to stress this, it hasn't been tested as intensely as other things that happen to this blaster. So I've been playing around with this spring in here, the one that I'm actually selling on my shop, for about 2 weeks, and I can say, yep, that's really cool. However, I honestly don't know how this will affect the performance and the integrity of the 3D printed parts in the long run. Because talking to Adrian, he had the idea of that return spring thing, but then abandoned it for several reasons. And so he doesn't guarantee that this will work and won't damage your blaster. I'm not going to guarantee that this will work and not going to damage your blaster. Because the thing is, essentially, the spring does the same movement as your hand does. But because it accelerates quicker, the velocity is so much higher. So potentially it could damage the internal parts. I don't know. And I want you to understand, like, if you do this mod, I really love it, I really want it, but if you do this mod, there is a chance that something might break or might wear out quicker. So the first thing that pops to mind that you might get issues with this mod is the O-ring that sits around the pusher. So the pusher being here and going into the turnaround. and because that hits the turnaround now with a lot more speed. So that is a, you know, tight fit, and the O-ring is meant to seal, so it has to be a tight fit. So I can see how this potentially could rub off the O-ring faster, which is why if you buy this spring mod from me, you're gonna get a second of these small O-rings, just so you have a backup in case that problem does occur. I haven't encountered that problem yet, but then again, I've only been playing with this configuration for about 2 weeks, and I just want to be honest with you guys. So the next thing is the whole functionality of this will depend on your magazine as well. So when in Paul's video, he says that the spring has to be strong enough to push the slide assembly forward as well as a dart from the magazine. And that is very true. So I noticed that my spring works a lot better and a lot quicker with the worker magazines as well as the upgraded magazines. The magazines not using a drum spring. And if you look at Paul's video, that's exactly what he's using. He's using an upgraded magazine by my friend Adia, Faza on Thingiverse, I believe. And this magazine doesn't have a drum spring. It actually has the similar sort of magazine spring, is what they're called, than the worker magazines have. And therefore the pressure on the dart is a lot lower. And what this means, I have two magazines here, so that being a worker 18 and that being the standard printed one with the drum spring, which is totally fine. However, they load it with the same amount of darts. So yeah, being scientific and all that. So technically there should be the same amount of pressure on the things. And yeah, so you can see that the squish on this is a lot higher than on this. And what's important for the spring return mod is, like from here is where the pusher needs to come in and push out one dart. So because the second dart in this magazine sits higher than it does in this one, even just a little bit, because the second dart is already higher, the pusher will touch that dart and might actually, well, will slow down and might actually not go all the way. So I've had this happen with this mod, that I was gonna prime and let go, and then realized pusher was kind of stuck about there. And that was because of this magazine. With the worker magazine, no trouble. And to show you what I mean, let's just go ahead. That actually worked quite nicely. There we go. Alright, so now compare this to that one. That will travel quicker. There you go. So I hope you could see this on video, but it definitely travels quicker with a different magazine. And so you got to be aware of what is your Gecko setup, what are you using, what type of magazine are you using. So if you only just using the printed mag and you have a really strong brand new drum spring in there, that pressure might be too much. It might be. If you have a worn out drum spring in these kind of systems, that'll be okay. And as you see here, like this is a fairly new magazine, like it has only been shot a couple of times. And see, that's what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. Now it got caught on a dart there. There we go. So that's the problem. It's the same problem, by the way, that the printed magazine in general has, like this one being too strong, pushing the darts up too far. There's going to be a solution for that in one of my upcoming videos, so stay tuned, stick around. But yeah, so with the worker magazine, absolutely no trouble. Fantastic, I do love this mod. It's just so cool. And the great thing is, you don't have to worry about the slide lock being engaged when you prime the blaster. See, like I've seen people having issues where they kind of prime the blaster and then they kind of go and this happens. Oh, no you didn't. Oh, I'm an idiot. Oh, fantastic. Alright, so what I was meant to say before I shot myself in the face, sometimes it can happen that if you don't prime all the way forward, that the slide lock here isn't quite engaged. So when you pull the trigger, this happens. You know, it's just the whole slide moves backwards and the blaster doesn't fire. But as you've just seen, as I just demonstrated really brilliantly, this doesn't really matter with the spring mod in here because I don't even have the spring in here. Normally the spring needs to pull this forward in order for the slide lock to engage. But just the slide lock being there, as well as the spring being here, that's enough pressure to stop the slide from moving backwards if you pull the trigger right away. So that's also a really neat thing. All right, there's one more thing that I have to tell you about this mod. One more thing that I consider to be a disadvantage of this mod, even though it is so cool. The problem that the Gecko will not lock in the primed state anymore. So if you have any jams or malfunctions and you need to access this, this is a little bit awkward. So what I mean is, when you normally prime the Gecko back to here, it'll stay there. And so if you then have, you know, any sort of jam or any problem, you can sort of look in there, you can get your finger in there, you can kind of, you know, can make sure that whatever is, ever dart is stuck in there or something, you can get it out. Or you can see what's going on. You can, you know, have a look at it. Probably don't look down the barrel, but this is not loaded. So yeah, this is the one thing that I really like about this. However, if you wanted to do the same thing with the spring return installed, that's not going to happen because it always wants to jump forward. So what you need to do, you kind of awkwardly need to hold it like this. Remember the pinky? And then you can still look in there and you can try and figure stuff out, but you got to be aware to keep this, like hold this when you have anything in there trying to clear out a jam, because otherwise it'll just smash forwards. So that's one of the downsides of this mod as well. And yeah, so just, you know, keep this in mind before you install this into your Gecko. So where are we? Where do I stand on this mod? What is the conclusion of this video? I love this mod. There's so much coffee in it. It's really great. So yeah, after all, I still think this is a really cool mod, and I've probably made this abundantly clear now that I really like this, and so does Paul. However, the call is completely up to you. Do you need this mod? That'll be up to you. Do you want this mod? You probably do. As far as I can tell right now, and that's important, I don't know of any damage that it's doing to the blaster, but I want you to be aware that there is a potential risk of damaging your blaster by installing this. But then again, you know, that's all the modding that we do, the potential risk of breaking our blasters. I think it's just way too cool. Like, just the whole thing of and ready to fire. I think this is just way too cool, which is why I totally want it in my blasters. And I'm probably going to put it in every Gecko that I have, except for maybe one, so I have a comparison on, you know, how internals sort of deal with it over time. I feel like I have tried my best to sort of line up why you want this and what are the potential problems with this. So yeah, I guess this is the conclusion. Really cool mod, makes you look really flashy when you do the whole like prime to aim kind of thing, makes the Gecko and its operation look really cool, but comes at the disadvantage of the clearing out jams not being as easy, the unknown potential damage to the internals or to the blaster over time, which we don't know yet, and what was the last one? Yeah, the compatibility with magazines and, you know, the dart wear and tear, that will be a thing. I really like it. It's available in my shop, as I said before many times, so go check it out. Yeah, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video. This was, I hope this was interesting for you. I hope, you know, you enjoyed your coffee break with me mumbling about one single mod. There's going to be more videos. I teased one of the new things as well, so I don't know if you've paid attention to the mag release I was using. That's been in development for some time, and there's going to be a video on that very soon. And other than that, thank you very much for watching. You know, if you haven't already, consider a sub and a like to the video. Consider checking out the social media, you know, and be a like and follow and sub and all these sort of things. That'll help me out a ton. Check out the web shop. If you have any questions about the Gecko or, you know, stuff for availability, you know, fire away. There's an email in the description. So until I see you next time, happy modding, happy nerfing, and love and sunshine.